It's time. It is time that you start to choose yourself. Stop waiting for others' acknowledgement. Stop waiting for someone else to allow you to be who you are, to give you permission to be who you are. Start to focus on yourself. That is not selfish, it is not self-indulgent, it's not cold, it's not heartless, it is not about lacking compassion. It's the complete opposite. Choosing yourself is the most compassionate thing you can do. Choosing to focus on yourself. What is it that I need in order to feel happy? What do I need in order to feel peaceful? And no matter what situation you're in, whether or not this is just general or specific situations where you find yourself latching onto others, focusing on what others are doing or thinking or feeling or saying or expressing, so that you can try and adapt to that, to make sure that the relationship or the situation you're in remains peaceful, but you're giving up your own peace. You might create a false sense of peace, a false sense of quiet, a way to just make the whole situation just calm on the surface, but internally you're not calm. If you are calm, it's because you are doing something that you're very familiar with, which is to abandon yourself in order to keep the peace. Abandon yourself and latch onto someone else. And it's not because this is a scolding or something like that. It's not because I am looking down upon you. It's the opposite. It's because I know that you're so worthy. You're worth more than that. You're worth more than latching onto other people or logging onto their nervous system. And I know you might do it because you're trying to be safe, you're trying to feel safe, you're trying to feel comfortable. And being yourself can be extremely uncomfortable. But you're also giving up yourself and you're giving up your own peace by trying to always adapt to other people and latch onto them and what they're doing so that you can figure out how you're supposed to act. And it doesn't have to necessarily be because you're pleasing the situation, but it's just a pattern of scanning your environment, looking around. It could also be that you're someone who, if you see something that is untidy, then you have to immediately tidy it. You have to fix it. You have to make it better. You have to make the situation better. So I'm also getting this feeling of someone who's very, very, very responsible. You're taking on so much responsibility. I remember someone saying that once, a therapist, about feeling like you have to take responsibility for the dynamic in a situation, feeling like you have to be the adult all the time, the parent, the one to make sure that the situation is comfortable while you're abandoning yourself, or feeling so much responsibility that you constantly feel guilty. You feel guilty taking time for yourself. You feel guilty resting. You feel guilty taking a break from someone. You feel guilty having any sort of pause or any sort of focus on yourself. You feel guilty doing something that is actually really, really good for you, really healthy for you. And it's just a reminder that you can almost see it as if the more guilty you feel, the more it's a sign that you're doing something really good, actually. It's not the opposite. You might think that the more guilty you feel, the more it's a sign that you're doing something wrong. But it's actually that you're doing something good. You're doing something that is very important. And you feel guilty because that might have been how people have reacted to you in the past. If you have tried to listen to yourself or done things your own way, then people have been like always having an opinion about it to you, wanting to control you. So choosing yourself might bring up guilt, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that you're doing. It means it's a good thing you're doing. It's good for you. And the guilt will also go away when you realize what you are gaining by choosing yourself. Instead of waiting for someone else to choose you, to love you. And it's not because you're not deserving of that, of being chosen by someone or being loved by someone. But it's that you're worth more than waiting for someone to love you, waiting for someone to accept you. So if you have people in your life that doesn't accept you, or that are not understanding you in the way that you need to be understood, or they're not loving you in the way that you need to be loved, then it can make it difficult to choose yourself. But it also makes it extremely necessary, because they're not gonna choose you. They're not gonna put you first. They're not gonna focus on your well-being. They're gonna focus on their own well-being. And so that's a way that you can, like, that's something that you can learn from people who have that tendency to like put themselves first and like almost use you as their therapist or their parent or their caregiver or their, someone they can always rely on. You're someone that people can rely on, and you don't have that in your life, someone that you can rely on in the same way. So again, you can see it as learning something from these people, learning to do the same thing but in a healthier way, learning to choose yourself, learning to love yourself, learning to put yourself first without having to like put others down or be cruel to other people. It's not about that. You can put yourself first and still be a very compassionate person and a very caring person, and you can still be, if it feels like something that is important to you to be someone who is there for other people, then you will be much better at being there for other people if you're there for yourself first and foremost. And I just got that feeling today that you might be experiencing a lot of guilt, whether it be in regards to this in specific or something else that's happening, or stuff from the past that is coming up that is making you feel like, almost like you feel guilty for existing, almost as if you have this huge responsibility, and also as if you have always had that huge responsibility since you were a child. You've carried that responsibility and that guilt that was actually not your responsibility. You were just made to feel guilty because you were made to be responsible for certain things that you weren't supposed to be responsible for. And because you were a child, of course you couldn't be responsible for something that adults should be responsible for. So it's almost as if you feel like you have failed someone or failed yourself or failed someone or something or some situation because you couldn't be as responsible as you wanted to be. But I'm here to tell you that you're not supposed to be responsible. Someone made you be responsible for something that you could never be responsible for. Like the only option you had was to fail, and thank God that you failed. Like, you were not supposed to have that responsibility, and even though you failed because you were not supposed to have that responsibility, you still had much more responsibility than you were supposed to. You still carried more than you were supposed to. So I'm hearing like, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive your child self, forgive the person who did not have a choice, and like forgive yourself for that part of you who feels like you failed. And like acknowledge that's a part of you that feels like you failed, and it's hurtful, it's painful. And like in order to forgive oneself, we also need to acknowledge that a part of us feels responsible and therefore feels guilty or feels hurtful, or feels like we hurt someone else because we couldn't be responsible, or we couldn't live up to. It's also something about that, like living up to someone's expectation of you. Again, you probably did live up to their expectation, and you did it so well that you've gotten into this pattern now of always scanning around you, looking around at what other people are doing to figure out how you're supposed to react, what you're supposed to be doing in order to keep the peace. So again, you carried that so much, you carried that responsibility, you had that, you fulfilled that role of living up to someone's expectation, but these expectations were so high and so unrealistic that like anyone would have failed it, like not even like Jesus or like God on earth would be able to live up to that. Like no person is perfect, no one is able to be perfect. We all fail, we all stumble, we all have imperfections, we're all sometimes responsible for things, we all have a tendency to hurt others, even if we don't have any intention for that, even if we're children and we don't even have to, like we don't even are supposed to have that responsibility. So it's almost like you had a responsibility you were not supposed to have, and then you felt like you didn't live up to those expectations, that responsibility, and that meant that you hurt people. And you feel like you're the one who hurt people, when in reality, you were the one being hurt. You were the one who had to carry those expectations from other people that were unrealistic. You were the one to be responsible for others' hurt. You were the one to be responsible if someone else hurt you. You had to carry that. You had to carry that grief. You had to carry that lack of self-worth. You had to carry that abuse. You internalized it. So even if you, like, it's not because I'm saying that you've never hurt someone, because we're all human. But it's just that, like, remember that you were a child. I'm seeing someone who is blaming their child self, a child who did not know any better, who did not like know right from wrong, and who had so much responsibility, and lived up to all these expectations, and at the same time, like, you're someone who blamed yourself and hurt yourself more than you ever hurt someone else. So I just want you to remember that perspective of it. It's not because I'm taking away the fact that you've also had the ability to hurt someone. And even as children, we can hurt someone and we can feel bad about that. And that's actually a really healthy thing, that we feel guilt or we feel bad about acting a certain way. Or maybe you've been someone who has like acted out in certain areas, like where you actually didn't have a choice because you were carrying so much hurt that you had to let it out in some way. And again, it was not your choice. You might have hurt people in those situations, but you did not have a choice, and you were a child. You didn't have the ability to regulate your nervous system or know right from wrong, or be able to really understand what was happening. And so even if you have hurt people, or you feel responsible for certain things, or maybe you're also like myself, like an old, like an older sibling, an older child, and feel that responsibility about having younger siblings, that in itself is also a very, very heavy burden to carry, especially in a dysfunctional home, feeling so much responsibility for your younger siblings around, or younger family members in general. And even if you have hurt people throughout your life or as a child, the amount that you have been hurt exceeds that, like, infinitely. It's you think it's like the worst thing that has happened is how you have hurt people, but how you have been hurt is much greater than that. And even the fact that you feel like you have hurt people is also a reaction on how much you yourself have been hurt by other people that were supposed to keep you safe. And again, so it just comes back to forgiving yourself, but also acknowledging that it is okay to feel that grief and feel that guilt. And it doesn't mean that you have to carry the world on your shoulders. It doesn't have to mean that you're like punishing yourself, because it's in the past. And the fact that you can feel bad about something just shows that you're not a bad person and you did not have bad intentions. So like, allow yourself to feel bad about it. Allow yourself to have grief about it or guilt about it. Because guilt is there to make us take responsibility. But it seems like for you the guilt is much, much, much larger than what is reasonable. It's much, much larger than what is reasonable. As with the hurt, you feel like you have hurt people infinitely more than someone else has hurt you. So it's just blown out of proportion. And so that is why I also feel so heavy, because guilt is a very powerful emotion, because as I said before, it is there to make us take responsibility. If I have hurt someone, I will feel guilty. So to make me take responsibility for that, those actions, for that behavior, for how I've hurt someone, be able to own up to it in myself, but also for that person, and express it either to that person or like internally to that person, like energetically to that person if I can't do it in real life. So taking responsibility for what my actions were. But if the guilt is blown out of proportions, if the guilt is so big, if the guilt is bigger than your responsibility, then it feels like you can never get enough. You can never be finished with the guilt. The guilt will just linger, because even if you take responsibility for all of the things that you have done in the past, or everything that you feel that you have done to hurt other people, it will still never be enough, because you feel more guilty than what is reasonable. And you have responsibility. You've taken responsibility. You were forced to take responsibility for something that was not your responsibility. And so you still have guilt, but it wasn't your responsibility. So how can you cope with that? Like, you can't take responsibility or own up to something that you didn't do. So if someone else has like hurt you, and you then feel guilt, like it doesn't match, because you can't own up to it because you were not the one who were harming you, abusing you. Yes, in some instances, you might have been someone who has been punishing yourself, blaming yourself. And so again, it comes back to, because other people around you didn't take that responsibility, you were then forced to take the responsibility. Because they didn't feel any guilt or any shame, you were then forced to take on that guilt, take on that shame. And it seems like the only way we can solve the grief and the guilt is by owning up to how we ourselves have blamed ourselves, how we have guilt-tripped ourselves, or seeing how others have been guilt-tripping us, blaming us, shaming us. Like, feeling the hurt is almost the only way we can release it, because those people that abused you will never own up to it. So that, like, they will never take on that guilt. They will push it aside. They will push it onto you instead, so that you can carry it. And then you're forced to feel it and release it. And here it also comes in, like, if you ever feel anger about it, anger is also linked to this feeling of responsibility, because there's an anger. There's an anger that is like activated when you realize that someone else who harmed you made you to blame for it. And that is unreasonable, that is unfair, that is an injustice. And in the injustice comes the anger. So if you feel angry as well, that is also a very healthy thing. So forgive yourself, but before forgiving yourself, allow yourself to feel the wound of having to carry all that and having to always put other people before yourself in order to be safe, and know that you're an adult now and you actually do have a choice now. You do have a choice to not constantly put others above yourself or ahead of yourself, or put others like on a pedestal, or always like scan around you, look around you before you look inside. So instead of looking outside, start by looking inside. What is it that I need right now? What is it that I feel right now? How can I care for myself right now? And if the outside environment doesn't match that, like, that's not your responsibility to, you don't have the power, or you don't have the power or responsibility to fix that. You're not supposed to fix that. If a person or an environment doesn't want you as the best version of you, if they don't want you to thrive, if they don't want you to feel at peace in yourself and to love yourself, then it's not the right environment. But we tend to try and adapt to others, because the most scary thing sometimes is to have to be on our own. And so we try and hold on to those situations, those environments, those people, those relationships, because it feels safe and familiar. Even if we have to abandon ourselves, it feels safe. And if there were some feelings of love there, or some feelings of someone saw you, even if they couldn't see you completely, but just the fact that they were receptive to you, or they were there for you in any way, then we have a tendency to try and hold on to it, even if that person might not be really able to hold space for you or to love you, or maybe they reach their limits, and you're in a process of expanding. And sometimes we expand so much that we can't stay in the same place anymore. And the only way we can stay in that place is by abandoning ourselves and shutting down and just trying to adapt to the situation. And we're good at adapting, but it's not where we are thriving. It's not where we're thriving. And you can take a breath. You can let your shoulders drop, and like let your forehead relax. Just feel your eyebrows like relaxing, your eyes relaxing. And breathe and know that it is not yours to carry anymore. It is not yours to carry anymore. The only thing you have to focus on now is you.